Okay. All right, guys. Good morning. Happy Saturday, April the 2nd. We are here with another installation of Reparations Saturdays. This is a weekly podcast that is being put on by the High Point NAACP and brought to you from the good folks here at Flex the Vote. My name is Rob Sims. I am your moderator for today, along with my co-moderator, Miss Constance Reynolds. Constance, you
Good
want to say hello?
morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. And as always, guys, we have our panel, which we discuss every week. Reparations Saturdays here in High Point. We have Miss Courtney Alston Wilson.
Morning, good morning.
Good morning. We have Mr. Thomas Scott.
Good morning.
Good morning. Got Mr. Ken Watts.
Good morning. Good morning.
Ken's on the 808s this morning, ladies and gentlemen, so be prepared. And last but not least, we have Mr. Jason Hicks.
Good morning.
Morning. There you go.
Jason.
So, hey, guys, we want to jump right into it. For those that do not know, the city of High Point and the High Point NAACP have agreed on a resolution to look into reparations for the descendants of slaves here in High Point. This commission will convene for 12 months where they will research and look into possible resolutions, if you want to call that, for reparations for the citizens of High Point. Right now, we're in the middle of the selection committee, and they are accepting applications for the commission, which would be a 13-member board, and that board is chosen from the citizens here that live in High Point. So today's topic we want to really cover is the application process. We'll start with, we are now at a deadline where we have until April the 8th to accept applications for the commission. The commission will take, again, 12 months, and they will research and look into recommendations that they will make to the city council for reparations for the citizens of High Point, descendants of slaves of the citizens of High Point. So, guys, how many applications do you think the committee should see in order to make a good decision on who should be on the commission? We'll start with that.
I don't think it's a matter of the quantity, but the quality, what's in the applications. If the right people applied and are highly qualified and fit what they're looking for, then that should be sufficient. It shouldn't be about 100 applicants. 100 people can come run a race, but 2 can be fast and the rest can be obese. Not be able to run. So I don't think it has anything to do with the number. It just has to do with what's in that stack, who's in that stack of experts or of individuals who can seek experts.
So what are we looking for, Courtney, when you say it's about quality and not quantity? What are we looking for in these individuals who want to serve on the commission?
We talked about that. Tony gave us a little bit more insight on what the qualifications were for that. I think Benita spoke about that. Ms. Sims spoke about that some as well. So I think we talked about that in detail. We talked about the pastor part. We had some good discussions about the people that would be qualified. It is a qualified individual. We talked about someone having a background in Africana studies. Well, that could be, like Ms. Sims said, any Black African American that's lived through this lifetime the shoes that we've had to walk in. So that could be the person. Or we talked about some economist or maybe a psychiatrist talking about the effects that we've had. Or we talked about many different people. So anyone can jump in and talk about more of the people we discussed. But we need a lawyer. We need some type of person that knows the law, that can tell us what our boundaries are within this. So there are so many different elements. We may need a historian. We need someone to tell us about the background, to do more research on the background. We need a genealogist maybe, someone that can tell us the roots and many different parts. How do the last names connect to the white individual who, you know, acted out these atrocious acts? So many people could qualify for the board. I mean, for this commission. But it's just a matter of, you know, we don't know who's in those 14 stacks. I hope it's qualified great people and we don't have to, you know, continue to wait any longer. We've waited for 400 and some years. I hope we can, you know, get this going.
Well, let's be clear that the applicants must all be from High Point. That was one of the prerequisites, if you call it, for applying. So anybody who's a resident of High Point can apply to this commission. There's an application that's on the city's website at highpointnc.gov. And on that application, you'll just specify that you want to serve on the one High Point commission. And then you attach a resume. And from there, there is a process where if you're chosen, we'll get into that later. But right now, it's just applying. And, you know, I've heard some conversations where we haven't had a lot of people to apply. And when I say not a lot of people, we're barely scratching the number of seats that this commission will cover. So we got 13 seats, guys. We roughly have, you know, that many people that have applied. And so, you know, where's the disconnect here? You know, how come we don't have more individuals applying to the commission?
I think one of the things is the voice being heard. So, you know, no one's gone to the courthouse steps and called a media press and said, this is what High Point is trying to do. This is what it looks like. This is who the people we're looking to seek out to assist High Point in this endeavor that we're taking on. I don't think that's been done. So media getting it out there, not just saying, you know, putting the ad in the newspaper. A lot of people don't get the newspaper. My grandmother literally read the article beside of it and didn't even see the article on the reparations. I said, did you read it? She said, no. And I went back and showed her where it was sitting beside of another thing. It wasn't on the front page, you know, and a lot of people, again, don't get that. So how are they to know? We didn't go out and do a media. The city didn't do media blast and say, this is what this thing. We've acknowledged that we have a part to play in the act of slavery. We acknowledge that we are unjustly treating these individuals still throughout the systems that we have in place. That did not take place. So no, people are not going to flood to do the application because they may not even know about the application, or the fuse may have not been sparked in them because of the way the information has been disseminated out to them.
You know, that's interesting.
Go ahead. I think that's about right. But I also think, I mean, just that also, you know, highlights the importance of, you know, tell everyone, you know, like you got 6 days and 15 hours left to get an application in. You know, if you feel like you're, you know, less than stellar qualifications, you know, whatever, doesn't matter. Just, you know, get it in there and, you know, work out the rest later. You know, I say we ought to have a lot more than 14.
See, the kicker is the city really is not supporting it. Do you get the picture?
Well, yeah.
And if a ballpark was being formed, you know, they're cutting ribbons and popping bottles, okay?
Yes.
But, or a mega site's being created, they're popping bottles, cutting ribbons again, but
No.
not the justice that's coming upon Black people. That ain't a priority.
Actually, I'm going to say the difference is, how do I put this? This is the same fashion, in my opinion, that other committees and commissions and boards are created and publicized. And usually when these situations are coming together where people can make some decisions for the city, It is not publicized. You have to know, you have to be in the know, you have to be in the loop. You know, you have to know somebody, or when they put these together, they have in mind who they're going to place on them. So this is one that is honestly, it's in the same fashion of the rest of the boards and the commissions. They come together and you wouldn't even know that they existed unless you had an eye and an ear in what's
Right.
going on in city government. So I think they're following the same format that the city
Okay.
always follows when it comes to commissions and boards. But you're right, it is, because this is for Black people. I think we do have to take responsibility. Yes, because they're not.
We got to take that one for our team. Like you're saying, it is protocol, because I was just asking about a commission in agriculture recently, and it is all about the end behind the scene. They already know who they want to pick. You're 100% right, Constance. But I really thought that since this was such a big, impactful thing on the economy, society, just the mental health of a whole group of population of people in their communities, it would just seem like it would be something bigger. But they are following their protocol, and it's up to us as a group of individuals within the community to shout as loud as we can about reparations, the commission, and how important it is for qualified people to go apply. It is on us.
I think that when we're talking us and them, I think that the them involved does not see the value in how this could improve the city as a whole. And there's all this backlash and you know, about the crime in the city, and how hood and ghetto it is, and how reparations is so, just saying the word is so, it's too woke, but I don't think they realize that, you know, where how did it go, where crime is, that's where poverty is. Isn't that what MLK said? They're married. You see crime, you see poverty. You want to really focus on solutions for the city, then you should focus on the improving the quality of life for the citizens in your city. It's just unfortunate that, you know, the big picture is not seen by everyone right now. I'm going to say not yet, but that's why I'm excited that we do have these 12 months in the commission, because that period of truth telling, fact finding, and sharing, and we do definitely need to organize the strategy for publicizing, for getting the media involved, because it's going to be that outpour of the truth that's going to mobilize people and get people involved.
So you guys bring up an interesting point, and it's about how this information is being broadcast. You know, if you look at the stadium and that situation, yeah, that was a pretty big push for the city. And of course, their end game was, it's going to be great for the city. It brings in revenue. So, okay, everybody, let's jump on board. Now we're talking reparations. And, you know, for what it's worth, that is a very touchy subject. I mean, and we're not just talking about here in High Point, we're talking about nationwide. But it doesn't take away from the conversation happening, and it doesn't take away from the action that we're trying to push forward. So, you know, what do we do? How do we, you know, this group here, the community that we live in, the Black community, how do we get more involved? Because we have until April the 8th, which is next Friday, to get in individuals in this city who can determine or shape a reparations that could come to its citizens of High Point. You know, how do we get them involved? Because the qualified individuals in High Point, who are they? Where are they? Who has been reached out to that we would want to have on that commission? I know, Courtney, you talked about an attorney. How many attorneys do we have in High Point that we should say, hey, guy, let me get you in there because we got something very important coming on? Who have we reached out to as far as historian, educators? You know, and I would put out there, you know, have we put our applications in? for the commission because every resident of High Point is qualified to be on the commission, at least to put an application in. And then, let the process do what it does, because from what I understand, they're looking for those who have the experience in Black Americana, the education, the training, the community advocacy. There are a ton of people who are in High Point that are doing things every weekend that, are giving back to our community. Where are those people at? And so I asked the panel, who should we reach out to here in High Point? How should we reach out and get some people on this commission? Silence.
Well,
Because
just to answer your question, I have not filled out my application yet. And I hope that just as myself, a lot of people are just procrastinating.
well, Ken, are you gonna turn it in by Monday, maybe?
I'm sure. Yes.
We have to
Oh.
set some goals.
Okay, that was a good question though. Who on the phone right now is turning in an application?
I'm turning mine in on Monday.
Oh. All right.
Good job, Rob. Good job.
I mean, hey, somebody said
Good
I
job,
can make
Rob.
a difference. Why not? And
Yeah.
you just never know, because each person has something to bring, and
Rob-
you just never know.
What do you
So-
feel you can bring to the board, to the commission, Rob? When you said who's qualified, what do you feel, what makes you qualified to sit on the commission that you feel that you applied?
My years and years of being Black. I have been in this system, and we call it the capitalist system. I've lived in, a few different states and cities, and so I've seen the disparity that comes from the discrimination of my folks for the past 400 years. I have been a part of helping individuals prepare their taxes for the last 20 years. So I've seen where the dollars and how they're being distributed amongst us and others. That gives me a history of, just what reparations would look like. Let's give someone an average salary that allows them to be able to maintain a household, to be able to buy a house, to become economically included. And also I work within the High Point community. I work with a community action agency that helps to train individuals to get into careers. Because right now, going to college, well, we just don't really have that great of an opportunity in our communities. And so we're always, resilient to the fact we pick up something, we learn something. And so by seeing what my folks have been doing to make it in this country, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. There's people in this city still making $8 an hour. They're making $8 an hour. I see a tremendous amount of people who come through my agency. They don't even have a high school diploma. In the richest country in the world, why don't my people have the same opportunities, the basic bottom opportunity, which is a high school education, which is, access to better employment training, better employment, and access to a better way of living? You look at this, the disparity just in terms of the health issues that we have. Some of the things that we're forced to deal with in our communities. If we had another option, imagine what our world could be like. We could have a higher rate of graduates coming out of high school going to college. We can have, more families. We may not have to have as many, single moms out there struggling to make it and help their children, and their children being categorized that they're going to this school or that school. So their opportunities become limited. And then we have that cycle that happens, that generational exclusion, that I have some opinions about how we can make that work for my people.
Okay.
I got some real life experiences, and damn it, I think it's time. I think it's time we, as a group of people, And I'm talking about the Black community. Get up, speak for ourselves, and be ready to take some responsibility for how we can change the course of history. Let's get this together. If you want to tell me we don't need reparations, great. Love your opinion. On to the next one. Let's use the same concepts they use here in America about the majority. Take a vote. Our vote is reparations. And we got a resolution in place that we can put an application in for free. Man, let me on the board. Let me on that commission, because I got an opinion about how it's going to work. And if I can get 11 other people, well, 12, I'm sorry, because there's a 13-member board. We got 12 other members who can look at this situation and say, hey, we got a reason that we should help our citizens of High Point. We contribute to this city every day with gas that we buy, milk that we bring home, our kids going to school and wanting to be better citizens. I can't think of one person on this earth that wouldn't want their life to be better. I can't. And so, man, let me in. Let me in.
I think I wanted to piggyback on something you said. You were saying something about like we all think that the city should be on board, because if you pour back into a impoverished group, okay, and a neglected group, then you'll win. The city will have more money. We'll put in more money. We'll do more in infrastructure. We'll add to the economy. That's what we think. But we don't realize that this is a game bigger than our mindset, because we think we see things, and what we see is not always what it really is. And that's a lot of what we go through on our day-to-day. We think we see something, but it's really not anything of what we see. We vote for a president, but do we really know? We really know that they've already picked that president prior to us going out voting, standing in the line, holding up our voting rights, and it's already done. It's already a done deal. So those are things that we think we're contributing to, but we don't know the background behind the scenes and what's really going on. So one of the things I say is follow the money. And no, maybe High Point doesn't want us to receive reparations because they win more so when they keep that group impoverished. It's called government funding. So they get funding for programs. It's called the prison incarceration, prison to school pipeline. It's called all of those things. They win on a larger scale where we don't see it, but they're winning within these programs to keep us where we are. So they're making money every day on our bodies. We're just not making money on our bodies. They win from our sweat equity. We don't win from our sweat equity. They win from our intellectual properties. We don't win from them every day. They do. So these are things that we have to really take in mind when we're looking at systems, and why is there not more city support? We have to educate our people more to know how to look behind the curtain and to see what's really going on in the system, because like we say, it's systemic. It is systemic, but we don't see all of the inner vines that go from the root of the issue. So, a tree is planted.
Courtney, every time you come on this program, you inspire me because you go deep. You go with them trees and those roots, and the roots of our people are in reparations. And so, we need to have this discussion. So, hey, guys, real quick, our guest speaker today has arrived. This gentleman comes to us from the city of High Point. He is a current community advocate. He is a member of the NAACP. Pastor Brad Lilly. He is the founder, director of the Peacemakers here in High Point, which is dedicated to community advocacy, as well as the chairman for the Reparations Committee. So we want to welcome Pastor Lilly this morning, and you guys are going to be very, very appreciative of what he has to say. So, Pastor Lilly, good morning.
Tell him he's muted, Rob.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. And I'm just getting on, and I think I jumped into something really lively here. So I'm just glad to be here.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Thank you. So today, Pastor Lily, we are talking about the commission, the One High Point Commission, and we are discussing how we can get more individuals to apply to the commission whose deadline comes up on April the 8th, which is next Friday.
Right.
And so we just like to hear from you. Again, Reparations Commission Chairperson, what can we do? What should we do? What can the citizens of High Point do to make this reparations a good thing for us? How can we make it happen?
Well, one thing we definitely need to make sure we're getting very good and qualified people on the reparations commission. And like you mentioned, that deadline for those applications is rapidly approaching. And so I would encourage everyone um, that is interested in this process and want to be a part of this process to get that application in. You can go to the City of High Point's website and apply to sit on the One High Point Commission. And then there's a process from there where the selection committee gets your application and your resume. You go through a grading system. So you're being graded on 4 things, which would be your education, your community service, your activism, and your training or your skills that you bring. So we're trying to get a diverse group of people to be on the commission. It's going to be a 13-member commission in which 2 people will be from representing the NAACP. 2 people will represent the City of High Point, and 9 members of the commission will be representatives residents from the City of High Point. And so it's very important that we get like I said, a good and diverse commission to address the issue of reparations in the City of High Point for High Point's African American citizens. And this is a historical that what's going on now. I have been involved for going on 2 years from the very start when this idea came to us through Doris Patrick of the NAACP. And we have worked and put together a resolution that was presented to the city, and the city agreed to create a resolution in the spirit of what the NAACP had presented to the city. And all those steps have been done. This is the next step. We have to seek these people on the commission. If you know somebody, or if you are that somebody, then I would encourage you to apply. Reparations is definitely a topic that needs to be discussed, it needs to be understood, and needs to be approached, looked at, presented before our city council, of whatever that commission will bring to city council after it has went through its process.
Okay. So let me just throw a question out there. And you kind of mentioned it, but I just want this to go out to the listeners who's tuned in today. Why is reparations important? And what is the NAACP asking from the city as far as reparations?
Well, reparations is important because since African Americans, since Africans were brought to this country as slaves, and then once we were emancipated, set free, we were initially promised reparations for the free slave labor that built this country, that generated the wealth of this country, and certain institutions and families. We were promised reparations, but we never did receive reparations. Uh, reparations addresses the wrongs that were done to the enslaved African people, and after emancipation, also the wrongs that were done to the freed Black man and woman through having to suffer through Jim Crowism, racism, discrimination, redlining, having to be discriminated against in every sphere, every aspect of society, whether it be education or commerce or living, or for economics or social justice. So we are owed reparations in some form. What that form will be, I have no idea. That's the job of the commission, and I'm not trying to do the job of the commission. I am just advocating for a commission to study reparations, to explore the reparations, and to make recommendation to the city of High Point. And so I have no idea what those recommendations will be, but I would like to see things addressed, such as education, such as entrepreneurship, such as housing, such as healthcare. And so, those are different areas that I think that we should expect to see some type of reparation, to come back to the community.
Sorry about that. I'm on mute. Okay. So what do we say to those people who say, I don't know, we don't need reparations? What is reparations? Can I get a check? What do we say to those people who are not really as knowledgeable about it, and they don't know that we do have this reparations request in? What do we say to those people, Pastor Lily?
I would tell them to look at the wealth gap.
Well, yeah, the wealth gap, yes. You could tell them to look at that. First of all, people have to be ready to speak the truth. There are some people who are going to deny the need for reparations. There are some people that will say, well, yes, that happened and it was in the past, and it has nothing to do with us now. But if you look at what's happening right now, there were people who benefited from slavery, and there were people who suffered from slavery. If you look at it now, then I guess we're still fighting the Civil War, because we have people today who are fighting against reparations, of saying that there's nothing owed to the Black man, to the Black woman for 400 years of slavery, free labor. We built up this country. It was through free labor, that enslaved labor. There is a debt to be paid for people who were snatched from their homeland. Culture was stolen, language was stolen, religion was stolen from them. Their very identity was stolen. There has to be some type of reparation, some type of way to address these things, some redress, to some way to make the wrong right. And you know, and first of all, if we can get those people who are, you know, so stubbornly uh, uh, will not acknowledge the history of it. We have to get them to acknowledge that history. If they can say yes, there was a Civil War fought. If they can say yes, this country did have African slaves, then you cannot then turn around and say, well, we don't have anything to do with that. Well, yes, you did, especially if you either benefited from it or you suffered from it. That benefit is still happening today for people, and the suffering is still happening today for another group of people. I happen to be on the group, in the group of people that have suffered from slavery. I happen to be in the group of people that have been oppressed and denied my equal rights, my citizenship. Even today, here we are in this country, 2022. Still talking about voting rights, those type of things. There needs to be reckoning within this country. And if we can quit fighting this civil war, if we can bring this country together, if we can truly say that this is a country, the land of the free, then you know, when after everything has been settled with that, after those wrongs have been made right, then if all of those things are addressed, then I'll quit saying we need reparations. I'll start saying this is a country where everybody is equal. But until those times, until we can address and have a level playing field, then I'm gonna continue to cry foul. And for everyone that does not want that type of history taught in the schools, well, you know, look into your history book, and in your history book, you're gonna see that yes, this war was fought. Yes, there were abolitionists. You're gonna have to remove a whole lot more, you know, than what they call critical race theory. What you're gonna have to do actually is rip out the pages of the very book you wrote. You know,
Confederate daughters.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wrote.
you're gonna have to rip out that every page. You know, if you can acknowledge that you had Southern white men that went to war to continue the institution of slavery, and if you can recognize them and erect statues for Confederate soldiers, if you can do that, then how can you say we cannot have a critical race theory? How can you say we can't talk about what really happened? How can you say that we don't want you going to school talking about racism? Racism was started before they walked through the school door. It was racism that stood in the doors of the schools and said that we don't want Black children to come into our white schools. And so reparations is just scratches the surface of all that we've been through. But if we get us to this point, if you get us to this point where you say, well, yes, these conditions exist, and we acknowledge that they exist, and the first thing we like to do is offer an apology that you as a people had to go through this situation, and then begin to look at what can we do to make it right, and just, you know, just make it right. Reparations is just a restitution. Reparations is just a way to make a wrong situation or condition right. You know, and so we call ourselves, we are called the greatest country in the world. And I like to say, bull. You'll never be the greatest country as long as you can hide the fact that you built this country off the backs, the sweat, the blood of an enslaved people.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Wow.
we are at
Dr.
Reparations
Lilly.
Saturday. When everyone listening out there, if you can, there is a commission that is being formed to look into reparations for its descendants of slaves here in High Point. You go to the city website, highpointnc.gov, pull up an application that says boards and commissions, put on there you want to join the One High Point Commission on reparations. Just say One High Point Commission. And Pastor Lilly just summed it up perfectly, ladies and gentlemen. You just heard why we deserve to have our debt paid right now. You know, there's no question about it. I mean, he touched on everything. You know, look at how the country was formed. Look at some of the things that, you know, you erect a statue, but don't want to talk about why the statue was erected. All that plays into what's owed to us. So, man, we got a couple of questions, sir. I'm gonna go to Mr. Watts first. Ken, you have the microphone.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you, preach brother. That was an awesome summation, and to tag on to one of the things you said, and what we were talking about earlier is I think there's an element of, and I don't know if I won't say it's 90%, but it's probably close. Are these same folks that are like, we don't need reparations and all of that. If the shoe was on the other foot, they'd be the first ones breaking down the door, talking about y'all owe me. So I just want, to, not let us get off the phone and acknowledge that a lot of that, dissent that we face is disingenuous. It's not that you don't understand that there's a debt, you just wish there wasn't one, and that ain't my problem. So I just wanted to make sure I added that to the conversation.
You know what, Ken? I think that's what Pastor Lilly had said, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pastor Lilly, but first we need that acknowledgement. They're trying to skirt away from the issue that there was a wrong committed. And maybe that's the process we should take, because if we can identify, get the acknowledgement, then the next step is naturally, how do we fix it? How do you make restitution on what you know was intentional discrimination, intentional racism to a group of people that were enslaved? Courtney, you're next.
Correct. That's correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead, Pastor Lilly. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm just agreeing. Yeah, you've got that right. That's correct.
Courtney?
I had a couple, one was when Reverend Lilly, you were talking about just the overall impact and the overall part of slavery and how they say they don't know, how can they fix the wrong, or they're not a part of the wrong. And I'm speaking of High Point specifically at this moment. High Point has a furniture market this week. So they could just do the study of the furniture market itself. From the time of inception of the furniture market being created, the furniture that was designed, who designed that furniture, who started the furniture business, okay? Who benefits from that family-wise right now in High Point? And then to look at the lack of non-existence, we don't even exist at the furniture market when it comes to distributors, maybe a handful of buyers. We should look at those statistics, because that is the makeup. A lot of High Point is the furniture capital of the world. What do we have? What state do we have? Any Black citizen in High Point? Do they have a part of the furniture market? Do we have any billionaires, Black billionaires off of the furniture market? Do we have any Black millionaires right now in High Point family off of the furniture market? What is our impact in the furniture market? We should do I'm sure there's a statistic out there about white bodies and Black bodies at the furniture market. We should dig up that data, look at it, and see where we are right now. Because I know we have a lot of people up there driving, working, doing for the furniture market, hauling furniture in, building showrooms. But where do we have ownership in? Like we said, we'll go to college, we'll get jobs. We don't want jobs necessarily. We want to provide jobs. We want to be on the other opposite end where we were when when we were great and excellent in Africa. We want to be on the opposite end. They came to us for trade. They came to us trying to figure out the gold. The British, the European, the Portuguese, they came to us. We didn't go to them. We had universities in Timbuktu. They didn't have those things. They came to us to learn from our scholars. We didn't go to them to learn from their scholars. So it's asinine to even think that we don't have a footprint in that. And that's just one place that High Point can start to recognize where they've excluded Black bodies. I had one more thing to say. We should start deconstructing the word plantation, because when we say we need to get away from using that term period point in general, because when we use the word plantation, it's like we empower, like we say slavery. We use these words that don't put any emphasis on the persons that were affected by it. And it says that the prison plantations were literally prison industrial labor camps. That's what they were, prison industrial labor camps. It says that it begins to obtain wealth on the scale never seen in human history. It was a model, and that model they have ran and ran and ran with to today is still successful. To today in 2022, the model is so successful, we don't have any footprint in the High Point furniture market. And it's just as simple as bringing it right back to our little hometown of what they produced here and what we're good at here. So that's just my, we got to stop giving these people these words. These white folks want to use these words: regentification, food deserts, plantations, slaves. We got to get away from that. We can't give them the power anymore. They're a little group of people. We're a mass group of people, and we should start acting like it and moving more in accordance with that behavior. We got to change our behaviors.
Ladies and gentlemen, Reparations Saturdays. Remember, we have a One High Point Commission that's forming to study reparations in High Point. Historic moment for the city. And I want to call upon anyone listening to this podcast or anyone else that's associated with the NAACP of High Point, or anyone that is, involved in anything with community. We want to ask you guys, put your applications in. Let's correct the wrong. And, I call out, civic groups, if we have any teachers, if we have anyone who cares about the state of their community here in High Point, the Black community, I ask you to come out, because these wrongs that have been committed, they've had ripple effects in our community for hundreds of years. We have a disparity in home ownership. We have a disparity in the median income. We have a disparity in the health coverage that we have compared to those who have economic inclusion. And we're struggling, you guys. Our kids are out here right now trying to have a future, and it's looking pretty dim. There's a lot of kids who, don't feel like they have any other options. We see a lot of crime in our neighborhood. Again, someone mentioned that poverty equals crime. Why we got to be poor? Why we got to have crime?
Rob, who do you think is supposed to receive? I was going to ask Pastor Lily this too. Who do we think, it's a big thing up in the air. Who do we think receives reparations? Pastor Lily, you came from slavery, enslaved. So those are descendants of those individuals. We came through Reconstruction, Jim Crow, redlining, today, 2022. So who, it's a whole bunch of confusion, and it's getting our Black community separated, and that's what we do best. We separate. We separate because of religion. We separate because dark skin, light skin. We separate for so many different things. And it's just another reason to separate. So how can we bring this together? Because we want to include, I hear discussions often about reparations when it comes to who's going to receive them. So we know for sure that descendants of slaves, descendants of Africans who were captured should receive reparations. But then we ease on into the Black community in 2020. When we're driving down the street, we get pulled over for so many different reasons, or however that looks. You're just Black in America. So no matter if you were an immigrant in the 60s or however that looks for you. So who is to receive it? And does everyone on the panels agree or disagree that there should be, I know we don't like to use the word programs. We know the government has programs and they're very good at discerning data and giving systems and putting things in place for certain individuals. They're great at that. So we do have to call it, probably we have to call it a program. And in that case, should there be like, you know, several different programs, and it's a description of, if you are, you know, a descendant of a slave, check. If you are, you can get a check, you know, you get a check and something for that. And then if you are a, you know, you've come through this time period, you get a check for that. So I think the separation should be divvied out and explained to people in the community that, yeah, you may have come in 1960 as an immigrant from the West Indies. And yes, you did experience atrocities within West Indies slavery. However, you don't get that check, that the back check, but you get this check. From this moment forward, you get the discrimination check, you get the exclusion check, you get all of the benefits that you had as an American citizen, you know, but you don't get that back check. So you don't fall into that fight. You fight for us because we're all Black and we should be united.
Okay, Pastor Lily.
Yes. So, okay. So Courtney, I hear you. So Courtney, I hear you asking the question. I think you were answering it also.
I'm sorry.
But
I get excited. I'm sorry.
but here's what I'm trying to do. Okay. I'm not trying to be the commission. Okay. I'm saying that let's sit these people on the commission. Let the commission, let those people address those questions and come back with their recommendations. You know, I for myself, yes, I can tell you what I like to see, but I'm holding that back because I want to say, let the commission come together and let us all just be open-minded for what they bring back, what they recommend to the city, for how, you know, how you're going to determine, you know, what form of reparations there'll be, and who gets those reparations, and, you know, what period of time are we going to be addressing. All of those things are things that people on the commission, that's what they have to put together. But if we can get this cart this far up the road, you know, it's a testament to the resolve of Black people in the nation, locally, right here in High Point, for the NAACP, and for those people who will step up and say, I want to be on this commission. Now, we have stated, and I want to say this again, we're not looking for a panel of yes people. You know, we're looking for diverse ideas, diverse opinions, where you can come together. You know, there has to be some type of representation on that commission, you know, for those people who are reluctant to say that, yes, the reparations need to be paid. You know, there has to be those who will actually just look at the history, look at the facts, and make honest opinions, and you know, then determine, you know, how do you make this right? How do you make it right? And so, you know, if it came from the West Indies in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, you are still, and you're a Black person. If you came from whatever country and you are a Black person, you are still suffering under the racist system that was established in the 1600s. One thing we got to understand was, when you mentioned the furniture market, but my mind went to commerce and free enterprise. In the 1800s, early 1800s, decades before emancipation, there were manumission laws passed here in the state of North Carolina that said that a free black, if they had a garden and they grew vegetables and they tried to make a living selling their vegetables, it was against the law to buy any product from a free black person. If you were a slave, you could not buy their product. If you were a free black, you could not buy from another free black. You know, the white people, they weren't buying from us. So even if you had a furniture maker that made rocking chairs and you were a free black living in this state, slave state, you couldn't sell that rocking chair to anybody. So you're not gonna make 100 rocking chairs to sit on your own porch. So you know that in itself, you know, kept us from ever being able to be in a free market situation. We had no choice. If we were free, living in a slave state, our only choice was to leave the state. And if that meant leaving your family and everybody else because you could not support yourself. And I want to thank everybody for allowing me to come on. Thank you, Rob, and the rest of the group for this opportunity, for the invitation. It's been a pleasure, and I have to go now, but I say God bless you and keep up the good work.
And real quick, Pastor Lilly, we want to thank you for coming. We really appreciate all the work you're putting into this. And again, guys, we have a One High Point commission. So thank you again, Pastor Lilly, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
All right. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Ken,
Yeah.
did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to address the whole issue of if you immigrated in the 60s plus. No, that don't strike me as quite right. Here's the thing: if you immigrated to the most racist country on earth voluntarily, you kind of get what you get, and you signed up for it. Now that's not to say that you just leave those people hanging, but that's what the quote unquote war on poverty is supposed to address. Normal everyday citizens
Right.
find themselves in distress. Okay, reparations has nothing to do with reparations. Okay, reparations is for 12, 13 generations of enslavement, brutality, rape, and death. Okay, that is not the same thing as being pulled over because you're driving while black. I'm sorry, not the same thing. And we need some level of specificity has to be part of this process.
That's why I said different little pockets, different little things. They can have another movement. It's called something else. But like Thomas just said, their own movement,
Yeah.
But we do have pockets. There are programs that happen to be. If you immigrated over here and you've been discriminated against, that could be a program that they got for them. But it has nothing to do with the slave program.
No.
Yeah, and I don't have reparations coming due to me from CARICOM. So and more power to them. I 100% support that movement and various movements throughout other areas of the world that have been colonized. I support all of that, but specificity being what it is, gives us the legs to stand on. If we take the specificity out of it, then we're just fighting some nebulous fight that don't mean nothing because we haven't defined any of the terms. And that becomes an attack on reparations.
And we're gonna be fighting with each other.
Ken,
Yeah.
if I can definitely piggyback on what you said, because I mean, of course, that I had a very visceral reaction to that. The aspect of that program. Yeah. And it's in part due to the fact that other movements throughout the diaspora, like CARICOM, when Malcolm X, let me give you an example, when he did his tour of Africa, I mean, there were a number of African leaders, I believe saving Nkrumah though, that stated that they couldn't deal with our problem. So, I mean, there's been a long history of them being pretty damn specific when it comes to things that they advocate for against Western imperialism and oppression. So it just doesn't seem right to me that we always feel that we after black Americans, we've always waved the Pan-African flag more
Than the
fervently than any other
Africans.
group, than any other group in the diaspora. I mean, and I know this just from experience because I've been abroad. I've encountered these people. But my guess to get to my point is let them advocate for themselves. I don't even believe it should even be a part of our dialogue. You know, because they make it a point never to include us. But it's always interesting. I think we need to explore this. Why is it when Black Americans, the descendants of slaves, advocate or we push for some type of parity or we push for tangibles? Let me be specific. Everybody wants to be in our pocket.
Nobody
But
wants us to have anything, Thomas.
well,
It just
well,
seems
well,
like it.
exactly, and exactly because they understand, and let's keep it a buck. They understand, is and Black immigrants included, that this country is a racial pyramid, and they benefit from that paradigm. And if Black Americans were to receive some type of their fair share of the economic abundance of this country, that upsets the paradigm for everyone, including some of our brothers and sisters who look like us, but they've been complicit in undermining us. So no, let them advocate for themselves. As my brother Tariq Nasheed would say, they got the whole day on that.
Next, we got a comment from Jason. Oh, I thought we did. Jason, is your hand up?
Yep. Sorry about that. I don't know what was happening. I just want to jump in and say that I think everything that's been said is a fair argument, but I also think that the resolution kind of takes care of that because it speaks to the institution of slavery and kind of focuses on, you know, the adverse effects of slavery and the city's the way that the city supported the institution of slavery, ordinances, and other things surrounding slavery. So I think it's a fair conversation to have, but also think that the resolution hopefully takes care of some of that, so that there's not, this separate movement and then within the movement that's been started by the NAACP and High Point. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I've read over that a couple times. The wording is pretty specific on, what the commission's responsibility is. So that's all.
And thank you, Jason. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see a copy of that resolution, it's on the NAACP's website. That's highpointnaacp.org. Go out and take a look at it, guys, because it's happening and it's happening right now. Connie, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I have a comment and a question. My comments on the idea Courtney mentioned, I know we don't like to use the word programs, but that might be a part of what we're talking about here with reparations. But I also want to reiterate that statement she said, follow the money. When we talk about the programs that are already in existence on behalf of the government, that's federal or even on the local level, that's money being poured into these programs. And then there are contracts where individuals come in as consultants and secure those funds.
Thank you, Connie.
So when we're talking reparations, I am all for a program that is funded and contracted to our people with our interest, our better interest in mind. We
have to come from financial institutions that we own.
Yes. And those contracts to run the programs and to implement them need to be to people of color who have those interests in mind and who have that mission and are already in business, who set out to do exactly what they're here to do. I meet people who run nonprofit organizations and consulting firms, and their mission is the wealth gap. Their mission is they see the problem and they want to be a solution. But guess what? They need funding. Everything costs money. So we do have to follow the money, and we need to make sure that when the commission does, make these recommendations, that there are requirements to secure the contracts. The same way there have been requirements to keep us excluded from getting these contracts. We need to be selective about who we're contracting to run these programs and educate our people too. And then my question is for one of our guests that just joined us on the call. I want to welcome Reverend Bradley Hunt. He's with us this morning. I've been bugging him all week. Thank you, Reverend Hunt, for joining us. I want to ask, since you are the president of the Greensboro NAACP, I'm curious, have conversations been had in regards to reparations over on the Greensboro side? And if not, why?
Good morning, my sister Constance. It's so good to be here with all of you. I've been enriched by this discussion. This is a rich discussion, and I think much needed discussion. And I'm thankful that I had an opportunity to join you all. I am still still trying to kind of feel the energy of the room. But I will say that there has been some discussion around reparations in Greensboro. Greensboro NAACP, we just concluded a report card on city council members, and we chose 11 key areas with community input and involvement, 11 key areas that we thought were the most critical. And reparations was a part of that. It was one of the key areas. And what we found was that the council had not taken any action as it relates to reparations. I believe that, and this is my personal belief, certainly not one, and I'm speaking to you all from my personal perspective and not necessarily as the president of the NAACP. I believe that a true reparation package that is going to be effective, it cannot be administered or facilitated by local government. I believe that the most effective reparation package will have to come from the federal government, and that they will have to give guidelines to municipalities and state governments to help facilitate the reparation process. For me, the question around reparations is, where do we begin? I've heard on this call that we are all clear that there is a case for reparations. But even on this call, we tend to disagree about how we can make that happen. And I think that's a challenge for our community internally, that we have to learn that we're not going to get everything in our push, and our ask, and even in our demands. But we have to be willing to compromise even amongst ourselves in order to get something. And so I think that as it relates to reparations, we can't allow municipalities to trick us, rather, into thinking that they don't understand the need, they don't understand how it is possible, or even that there's a study that needs to take place. A lot of times what I find with city government is they will do studies just to appease the folks that are pushing for certain changes, and never really adopt the recommendations. And so I want to challenge the work that is being done in High Point, that if you just continue to push them on equity, there are ways that we can get reparations, and we don't have to frame it as a reparation. We just have to be creative in our ask. And so I want to commend you on the work that you're doing at High Point, but continue to push them to, and what that looks like, I believe, at this point, the push has to be around the budget. We have to get eyes on local budgets. We have to analyze and see, because the budget is where your priorities are. And so if you are passing a budget that does not prioritize Black people, then we have to push government to do that. And so I think that there are ways that we can achieve reparations, but we can't get caught up in the details. There was a saying that came to my mind, and it is, it's hard to be big when little got you. So I think we just have to continue to push, but also understand that this is a process, a complicated one. And I think that ultimately the push from the local governments and local communities has to translate to federal legislation and policies that will allow us to feel some relief on the ground. Once again, Constance, I thank you. God bless you all, and continue to do the great work that you're doing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So guys, am I on mute? No. So tell me what you think. That was an interesting piece to talk about the equity. You know, you hear sweat equity, but governments, they think in terms of dollars. And they think in terms of, you know, what makes sense for the municipality, which is great. And our mindset needs to be the same, which is, where's my cut? You know?
I like what the brother said about the budget. That's where we need to be going.
You know, all of these things are going to be
City of High
discussion
Point
points.
has a $500 million budget every year. That's $500 million. And that's just the normal regular budget. You know, there's more on top of that for grants and programs and stuff. So yeah.
And, you know, I believe these are the discussions that we have to have now that we're moving forward with reparations. Let's talk about the money, because that's what it is. You know, what do we have to pull these resources from? And if a city has a budget, then that budget has line items. One line item should definitely be reparations. You know, let's bring some equity to a disparity. I mean, I can't put it no simpler than
There
that.
you go.
And again, you know, we're reaching out today. Anyone listening to the podcast, go to highpointnAACP.org. You can look at the resolutions, you can add comments, you can even join the movement with us. And we want people to put in their applications for this One High Point Commission. There's a deadline next Friday that applications need to be into the city. You can get that application at highpointnc.gov. You will go to boards and commissions, and you will fill out an application to apply to the One High Point Commission. They're also going to be asking for a resume, I believe. And we encourage everyone to go out. If you're a citizen of High Point and you are affected by slavery, either you benefited or you suffer, come out. Because as Pastor Lilly put it, you know, this is an egregious. I mean, we're talking about years and years of a wrong that has been committed to one group of people. You know, CRT can't whitewash how this country got into a civil war. How do you not put that in the conversation when you're talking about Abraham Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation, or Juneteenth? All of that is the same conversation. And this is why reparations is needed. You know, it was a year before all of us really figured out that we were free. So that in itself says that there was a concerted effort to keep an individual race of people, an individual group of people as slaves in this country. Any comments?
And man, I want to add to what you said, that not only can you find all the information by going to the website that you mentioned, but we have made it super easy for people to get their applications in for the commission. And just to repeat, the deadline is in 6 days. You got 6 days, 12 hours, 41 minutes to get your application in. And it is on the NAACP's website. If you go to the reparations page, it's right on the top. Submit your application, click the button, it takes you straight to it. The application only has like 10 questions. It's super easy. Submit your resume. Let's get it done, folks.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why we're here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reparations before the city council. Before the High Point City Council, there is a commission that will be established, or that has been established, or pretty soon, that's going to look into reparations. So anybody hearing the sound of my voice, go to highpointnaacp.org. Check out the website. Go to highpointnc.gov. Fill out an application. And, let your voice be heard, because today, ladies and gentlemen, we have heard some incredible facts. That's just the reality of the history of this country. That's a history of how this group of people have been treated in this country. And, reparations is just a part of that. We need reparations for the citizens of High Point. We want reparations for the citizens of High Point. And we want everybody to know about it. Tell you what, I'm going to go around the room. I'm going to ask my panelists if they can just give us one key piece of information they got from today's conversation, or one thing they can offer us as we move forward with reparations. We'll start with Mr. Scott. Well, maybe Mr. Scott doesn't want to go. Okay, let's then go to Mr. Hicks.
Let's see. I think I want to kind of piggyback on something I said last week about let's see. Yeah. So thinking about slavery, and then the carceral state, and how criminal justice system was was used to continue slavery. I think it's important to me. Something I thought about this week was how far along society as a whole could be if the criminal justice system wasn't used so strongly against the African American community. Because I recently saw something where, there's so many things that are taken, that we as individuals, as a society as a whole, take advantage of, everyday uses of things that were invented by a African American person. So I just think about all these creative minds that could potentially be locked in prison right now because of the way this country is set up, and just think about how much further along we may be if those creative minds were allowed to actually be creatives. And I just think that, reparations are important because, a lot of this comes from, as we just stated, poverty creates crime. So maybe reparations can help curb and create a better community in High Point, and maybe this could be the catalyst for other communities across North Carolina.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. Next, let's go to Courtney. One takeaway or one suggestion.
My computer's froze. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
We can see you.
No, my computer's froze on my side. It's crazy.
We can see and hear you.
Wow. And can you see me moving my hand?
Yep.
Yes.
What is that? It's like it's got me frozen and it says I'm on mute. So I wanted to ask Bradley a question, if he's still on. What are your steps then, Bradley, for you all as the NAACP chapter in Greensboro then? What are your steps for justice for our people? If you guys aren't going for reparations, and just aggravating, I guess, the community with that a little bit and trying to get something locally. Are you guys putting together something to support a bill or something that's more federal?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sister Wilson. I want to be clear that we have, and Greensboro is not unique in this regard, that we have so many issues that we're dealing with. We are required to multitask in a way that is really divine. I think that our people have been given that, the ability to do this, but we have to push for so many, there's so many things that we need. Right now, we have an election that's before us. And so we just finished the report card. We use the report card to educate the community on the issues. As I said, reparations is one of those issues, but we're also talking housing. We're also talking poverty. We're also talking police accountability, LGBTQ issues, decriminalization, all of these. So we have to have a collective impact strategy. And a part of our collective impact strategy is reparations. But as I said, at this point, there was nothing to evaluate the city council on because they had not taken any action on reparations. And so that tells me that our community has to demand and has to raise our voices more. The key to that is collective. It has to be all of us speaking. That's what makes it credible and impactful. And so we're pushing locally on reparations, but the reparations is certainly a part of our collective impact strategy, which are multiple issues.
So will you all support us in our reparations since we're actively moving forward with it? Will you all support us in our movement?
Absolutely. We're supportive right now, even today.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we're going to go to Connie. One takeaway from today.
Well, I have two. So we were discussing earlier on the podcast qualifications, who should be applying, the deadline is Friday, who do we need to get? And from today's conversation as it unfolded, in addition to everything that we've already mentioned, I'd say, hey, if you're good at math, come on, because we need to be crunching numbers. Period. So that's one takeaway. And also, it was mentioned that, elections are coming up. We see that there are already town halls that are starting to happen and forums where candidates are starting to speak publicly. I say, let's show up. I say, let's ask about reparations. Let's put these candidates on the spot and see what they have to say about it. I think that a part of, collectively pushing the issue, it starts local, but I think it needs to be recognized how it's so much bigger than the local. So we can, as individuals, band together and make our voice loud enough to where we create this snowball effect. Now, I think that we're very unique in North Carolina, and I don't think we need to overlook it because we're the only state thus far that has 3 cities already working on reparations on the municipal level. And that's not to be ignored. And it should certainly be brought to the attention of every elected official who represents the state of North Carolina, because we're talking about pools of constituents in more than one county. So this is something that we need to amplify and make sure that it does not go overlooked and unheard as these elections are coming forward too. So that's my takeaway.
Excellent point, Connie. And I am going to agree with you on let's get the message out. Let's show up at the forums and let's ask a very simple question. And then let's see where it goes. Because I'm interested to see what our candidates who are running for public office feel about reparations, the history of discrimination and racism in this country, and what we're going to do to fix it. Excellent point. Excellent point. Next, let's go to Mr. Tony Graham. Okay, maybe Tony's not ready. So we'll go to Mr. Watts. Ken, takeaway from today.
Go to the website, get your application in. That's it. That's all. That's the only thing that matters right now. 6 days. 6 days, 12 hours. Let's get it done.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Ken. And then we're going to go back to Thomas. I know I saw him in the chat. Thomas, are you with us?
I am with you. I just wasn't in a position to respond to you, but I did. I heard you calling on me. Excuse me. So I do apologize for that. My takeaway from today's broadcast is simply a couple of things. Just we have to keep our eye on the ball, and that's tangibles. If it does not increase our wealth or our influence, it's superfluous. It's not, it's not something that should be our focus. And be careful of muddying the waters in our pursuit to achieve our end of having our fair share of the economic abundance that we've built for this country. So that would be my general takeaway from today.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. And we'll try Tony one more time. Tony, are you there? Okay.
Tony's mic is messed up on the computer, so he's not able to respond.
I see that. So we're just going to share what Tony shared with us on the chat, which is get the word out, guys. April the 8th, deadline for applications to serve on the One High Point Commission. Go to highpointnc.gov, go to the boards and commission application, open it up and fill it out, and you want to serve on the One High Point Commission. That deadline is Friday, April the 8th, and we encourage everyone to come out, put your application in, but also, you know what, let's come out. The NAACP has meetings that they have once a month here in High Point. They're on Tuesdays. The first Tuesday of each month, they have one that's actually coming up next week. These are done virtually, so, anybody can attend. It's a general meeting. We want to hear from you guys. We want to hear from the community. And then, of course, we're here every Saturday, ladies and gentlemen, from 10 a.m. until 12 p.m. We have Reparations Saturdays. Right now, we're Facebook Live. We do replays on the website. But come out. Tell us what you think, because we want to hear what we can do to right a wrong. And that's what we're here for today, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to talk reparations for the Black citizens of High Point, the descendants of slavery. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap up today. I want to thank all of my guests who've come on today. Pastor Brad Lilly. We have, I think it was Bradley. Is your last name Hunt, Mr. Hunt?
Yes, but Bradley's fine. Thank you, Brother Sanders.
Yes, sir. We want to thank our president from the Greensboro chapter, and Mr. Hunt, we would love to have you to come back. Because again, some of the things that we're discussing, you've hit on, it's equity, folks. And I also want to thank my panel. Of course, Courtney, she has her hand up.
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
One thing I wanted to see whenever the commission is formed, when the commission does meet, that we're able to still, we are asking these 13 individuals to speak on the behalf of the Black community. But if we're able to have the community weigh in at all times throughout this year process, where they're able to speak to the commission, that the commission's very transparent, as they're doing their findings, but the community's able to give voice back into that, so they can still communicate and ask for the things that just their concerns, whether it be demands that they have, whether it be just input about the community, whatever it may be. I think that the community should be able to have input within the commission each and every step of the way. So whether it's an open question and answer once a month that they do, but somewhere that the community can call in, the public can call in and actually voice their concerns and things like that. That was it. I didn't want to lose that thought. That's all.
That's a great idea.
I agree. I agree.
We
And
can't,
that's what, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the commission just can't be the end all be all. That's a lot of times what happens in the Black community. We take a voice on for people that may have some other concerns that we're not even aware of. And it's able just to continue to hear the voice of the community.
Ladies and gentlemen, get your comments, suggestions to the website, highpointnAACP.org. We just got a comment in the chat from Mr. Tony Graham, who said there is a discussion about this being an open committee forum. So that speaks right to what Courtney was saying, guys. Let's all get involved. There are, again, meetings of the NAACP on Tuesdays. The public is welcome to join. The city of High Point, they have meetings all the time, whether it be a committee meeting or the city council meeting. That one is coming up. There's a city council meeting, I think, on Monday. I think it's the first and third Mondays of each month. Go to the city council meetings. Let them know that we're here and we want to talk reparations. We want reparations. So guys, let's get involved. Again, April the 8th is the deadline. We want everyone that's able-bodied to come out. Let's lend our support to this, and let's, again, correct a wrong, and let's make it right. And then I have Mr. Hunt. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Brother Sims. I'm sorry, I don't want to prolong, but this is too important. We have to lift that early voting starts April 28th, Guilford County, and we have very critical elections on this primary ballot. I think folks need to understand, especially if we're talking equity, we have to look at the sheriff and we have to look at the district attorney. I believe the brother said earlier that criminal justice is connected to this. Well, we have an opportunity here, and April 28th begins that opportunity for us to have our voices heard through this electoral process. And so I want to encourage everyone to tell everybody this is a critical election. This primary election is critical, especially with the sheriff and the DA. Do your research, look at these candidates, and let's promote and push our community to move and to mobilize. And I think we'll be successful moving into the general, all while doing all the other things that we're trying to do. Thank you so much.
Can you share that report card with us, Bradley, that you guys did? So we'll know more about the candidates maybe?
I would love to. I would love for you all to share with us in the report card.
Yeah, we'll put it in our newsletter. Okay. Well, that's it. That's all, folks. Okay. Don't hang up.